Hey guys, and welcome to Top Channel 101. So today we're going to be doing some motion graphics animation, just a simple image reveal, flipping different cards and getting this image by using an object and geometry nodes. This was something very hard to do previously without geometry nodes, and I'm sure if any of you were here before geometry nodes could testify on that. So let's jump into this video and see how we can set this up. The project files are going to be available on my Patreon page or Gumroad in case any of you want to examine this, but I have this controller that I can slide and just determine where my reveal. So they have a jump and then a rotation. So let's jump into a new Blender project. Let's start with the, I don't know if this is a pentagon or hexagon. I'm not very good with my geometry very well, but it was a 6-sided figure, just like that. I fill it and then extrude it in the Z axis. Give it a bevel, a slight bevel like that, with a hardened normals and then auto smooth like that, to have the edges rounded like that. So I'm going to set up the materials quickly here. So 3 materials. One is going to be the top, and this is yellow, and then just give this a nice yellow. The top is just going to be, I wanted a dark material, but I didn't want it to be just plain like that, so I use noise texture in the roughness. Just scale this up, maybe, yeah, something like that. And I want the bottom this to be take on that. Let me use yellow like that. I need to assign this to the top, and the bottom will use an image, but I will set that up later. Let me make sure that I'm saving. Call this one. Okay, now let's set up our geometry nodes. I'm going to move this on the side, add a plane, and this is just going to hold our geometry nodes, and we can go into our geometry nodes here and start creating our grid, our hexagonal grid like this. So to do that, let's first create a line mesh, just like that. We want it to go horizontally, so I'll use the X offset, set that to 1 like that. And I want to instance on points, because I want this circle or pentagon to be our instance object. Connect that as our instance. I can see what we have. If I go to the top view, I can see what I have right now. We might need to scale this down a bit, so I can either use a transform or just scale the instance directly here. Just let me first hide this or just move it away. So I want almost no gap in the middle. I think 0.5 could do it. No, yeah, something like that. Now we want another layer to have this interlocking. So for that, I'm going to do, I can actually just come in here, because these instances are instanced on each point of this mesh. So this has a point of 10 points, and I can increase the number of points by just increasing the count. So what I want to do is to just move to create a pattern, an interlocking pattern for these hexagons or whatever they're called. So I want to move this one above here, and actually let me show you what I want to do. Let me bring back my old one, the original version here. So if I duplicate this, I want to move this here, and then the next one there like that. So basically create that pattern and then just repeat it over and over. And there is a simple way to do that. Since I know that this is a mesh that we are basing off, now if I convert this to points, mesh to points, you can see where each of our points are, and if I preview this, you can see where our points are. So each instance is at a point. So if I use a set position, I can push some of these on the y-axis. I want to skip one, and I can easily do that using the modulus. So if I bring in the index, I can create a selection of all the odd numbers or even numbers. I can use math node, and if I use a modulus, so get the index, basically, which is every point here, and I find ones that when I divide by 2, they don't bring up they don't have a remainder, and use them as our selection. So if I connect these, you can see I easily get that. I just need to push these. Let me see, do I can just then, yeah, that's what I wanted. I can remove the instance, just preview this node, and we have that. Now I can from there I can control the number of count on the x-axis. I want these to repeat also on the y-axis as well. So what I'm going to do is just get this line, which is just this zigzag line. If I use it as an instance and create another mesh line that runs in the y direction, so the offset this time should be in the y-axis like this. So I should have these lines repeated like that, and now those become our points here, hence that. So I can control the x, the y, and the x count. Now what we are left with is to set up our proximity so that we can get a mask that will determine the rotation of each of these instances by the distance of that instance from whatever object we use to get the distance. Okay, so but before we do that, since we're going to capture the distance, since we're going to use a proximity node, we need to come in here, I think here, and first make sure that we realize these instances here, because right now we have these points, we turn them into instances of these lines, and we need to realize them here so that the proximity node works correctly. Okay, now let's work on the proximity node. So we're going to use a proximity, geometry proximity. We want to capture, we want our target to be a sphere, so I will go on and create a UV sphere. Scale it down and apply the scale, something like that, and just going to drag that in here, connect it as the target, and we want to set this to relative, otherwise it won't work. And now we can use this to set the rotate instance, and if you connect this directly into the pivot, into the position, you can already see that we have something working. If you don't see anything working, make sure that you realize the instances. Otherwise, if you don't have this realized instance, you may not see anything. And another thing is that make sure that this is set to relative. If you have it to origin, then it won't really work as well. Make sure that this is also set to relative. Now, one thing you will notice is that we're getting a weird type of rotation because we're just feeding the position into the rotation. We don't want that. We want to use the distance because we want to capture the distance of each of these instances from the distance between these two, the objects and the instances, so all shapes. So to do that, we're going to use the distance, and we want to have that drive the maybe the Y rotation, yeah, something like that. And now, of course, we want a minimum range, so you can use a ramp, a color ramp here to control, and you can see how that is looking there to control this, but you can see you don't really get that much control over this. So what I'm going to do is first map this range, and to do that I'm going to use the attribute statistics to first capture the range, the geometry. And I want to capture this distance because I want to map this distance to a value of 1, a range of 0 to 1. So I'm going to use a map range, and the reason why I'm using the attribute statistics is because it gives you the minimum and maximum value that the map range requires, and it also requires the value. We get that directly from the distance. I can hide some of these values by using Ctrl H and just retain only what we're using. Now if I connect this to the Y, I can use a math node here, multiply, make sure that this is set to instances, because remember we are dealing with instances, so make sure that in your attribute statistics that this is set to instance, not to point, because we are dealing with points. And now if you add the multiply, it should work fine. I should so let me first disable that for a minute and add a ramp, a color ramp here, and can even use this to control our rotation. And what I want, actually I want the opposite. I want the closer parts to be rotated, so I'll just flip this. Now if I control the max range, you can see I can control the rotation. Now the issue I'm having is that these are not start off in a weird rotation, so I can, that's why I have this multiply, so that I can rotate them so that it's to something like this. Like I think it's supposed to be 3 point, because these are this rotate instance node takes in radians, so I think 3 point something is 180, and that's what we are going for. Let me just make sure that I turn on ambient occlusion here. So now when I change this, you can see how we get a nice rotation. We can play with the color ramp to play with the transition a bit. So if I do this, you can see what we are getting. But one thing I don't like about this is that if you look at this from the top, everything, this looks too smooth for me. The rotation transition looks too smooth. So in the original one, let me play that a bit. In the original version, you can see that it's not as smooth as this. There is some bit of distortion. So to do that, I just use a noise texture, a noise texture into the color ramp. So I'll just use a mix node, set this to I think color, and then color dodge, and then introducing this. Make sure these are all connected correctly. Connect this to this. So it helps bring in, let me try color burn. Of course, we can add a color ramp to add on this. So we start to see that we don't have a smooth transition like we had before. So if I remove this, you can see everything was super smooth. Now we introducing some, at least some random pieces that and now if I play this, you can see we get that transition. Again, when you move this, everything moves. Another thing I added to my version is that I use the same setup to have some of these bounce up. So I can just use a set position here. That will just push things up. But we again want to use the same setup, at least from this range. Can use this, can affect the Z position using this range again. Let's first use a color ramp here. Control which ones are getting raised, or how far these are getting raised. So you can control that. And after they go back up, because this color ramp just pushes them up, we can use a float curve here, and then maybe just bring them back here, so they go up and then back again. So we can even do something like that. And again, I don't want this to be super smooth like that. That's why I want to introduce the noise back again. the mix node like that. So and now with just this value we can control how things play out. So you can just expose, that like that, and just animate that value. So go to the timeline, new, set a keyframe, it's a bit fast at the end here, so what you could do is, because it speeds up too fast here, so maybe at around here you can add another keyframe and then spread out these keyframes a bit, and you can see. So then all I did was add another plane at the bottom that had that yellow material. Now for this, actually this should be a different material for this yellow image or image, and let's set up the image that is going to be revealed. Let me first hide this. So the image that is going to be revealed is actually, you can just find something. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Maybe I should have used a subscribe tech image, but I don't think I have one. Anyway, let's just find an image, and make sure to leave a like as well. Helps out the channel a lot, and inspires me to do more. Okay, let's find something. I think I used one of these images. Let me just use this here. Okay. Let's make sure I'm saving. See, if I preview this image, it's not going to show because I think we don't have UVs. So I'm going to use Ctrl T. Let me first Ctrl T. We don't need to UV unwrap this. We want to use object coordinates, and what we're going to be using is the sphere itself. Actually, no, the sphere, because that's going to be a bit. We don't want to use one object to control the texture and the image. It's just going to be difficult to control things. So what I'm going to do is just add an empty like that, and just select that empty, and in the settings here we want to change this to extend so that the image is not repeating, and I can just bring this here, scale it even so that it's in the center. And I want this to be blended, so I'm just going to use a mix node, set this to color. So this is going to be BA, and this is going to be that, like that, and we can use the alpha mask of that, and now this can go in here, connect, and it should reveal. So all you have to do now is hide this image, the controller, and then you have that nice reveal. You can see how that reveals. Nice. I think the rest is just setting up lights, setting up the everything, and you're good to go. So thank you for watching. Again, project files are going to be on my Patreon page and Gumroad if you want to examine the project.